What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Been working on my voice, honey, ginger. Let's see if I can get through it here. Got a lot to talk about. Transfer portal. Trevor Pena from Syracuse swinging back around, schedules his Miami visit. AJ Halsey, the safety from Houston, getting a lot of questions there. Basketball stuff, a lot to get into, plus your questions, and we will do all that first. So, folks, there's no questions about that. It's Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Good morning, D, or good afternoon now.
Yeah, man, we're getting a lot of comments about being on Cuban time. We had to work up to this one. This was we've been liking doing the early shows lately, but there needed to be some rehab going on, some sore throats.
Listen, man, I've said it before. It's either we go live on the spot and don't give anyone any sort of heads up, or kind of give you guys some sort of timetable when we're gonna get on here. So
no, but I appreciate everybody in the chat, man. Everybody in there, Jacoby, Loose Screws, Bry, Mike, everybody doing their thing. Appreciate everybody. 345 MIAHIA. Comments are really just bubbling right now, and man. It never stops. April used to be slow. This used to be the slowest time on the calendar right after spring.
Not anymore.
Portal, man. We got numbers on portal that are like nothing else, because people just want to know how we can get from 10-3 to 12-2, whatever it is, 14-0, however you want to slice it up. And we've been pretty clear that the positions that you need to improve from a starting standpoint, there's a depth aspect to it. You got your boy Braxton Felly, right? Defensive tackle, all conference from Boise State, a playoff team. He's in here now on Tuesday. A couple other guys visiting. Noah King, talented defensive back, signed with Kansas State as a 4-star. Apparently had a good spring and jumped right back in the portal. Not sure the backstory there. I'll do some digging. I believe also one of the wide receivers is here right now as well, right, Pete?
Charmar.
Charmar's in town. So we'll get that whole thing squared. But to me, Trevor Pena at receiver, we just need a starting receiver and a starting safety and an impactful wide receiver and impactful safety. Is that Trevor Pena? This is the Syracuse wide receiver, a first-team All-ACC, or third leading receiver in the ACC, leading returning receiver among the guys that didn't go pro. He's the highest-rated receiver. Leaves Syracuse. There was some back and forth with Fran Brown. Was it about money? Was it about quarterback?
Probably a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both. I think it's clear that there was a quarterback issue at Syracuse. They're doing a very smart move going and getting Angeli.
Well, he's not committed yet, but he's visiting there, and I think that'd be a good pickup for them.
Yeah, I think Angeli would be huge for them. We play them, unfortunately, so I was kind of hoping they'd roll with this terrible quarterback situation they have, but obviously losing Pena is going to set them back as well. They lost a lot of talent at the skill position, so we'll see. I think Angeli would be really, really good there for them. We'll see where Syracuse goes from there, but for now, Pena's in the portal. We reported when he first jumped in, there was a lot of Miami buzz. I said, slow down. Miami likes what they have with Malachi Toney in the slot. And, this is free agency. You heard Fran Brown complaining about Pena's price tag. Pena went and visited Penn State, had a good visit there, but is now making his rounds. UCLA's on the docket. Miami's on the docket for this week. So I think part of this process is it's like free agency. It's like NFL free agency. Let's see where it all lands. There's a lot of moving parts. I think Miami likes Pena as a player. I personally think Pena could probably play outside and inside. So we'll see how it lands, man. Miami's looking to add maybe one or two receivers, or maybe even three if it lands right away. You see them going after guys that have played, but would probably be considered more depth options on this team.
Wow, that's interesting to me. Potentially three is. I
heard that. I'm not sure I buy that, but I would say two.
Okay.
But I've heard that. So we'll see. I think two is where it lands, but I think they need to get an impactful guy. To me, my opinion, Pena is an impactful guy, but like all these things, there's a price tag.
Well, and look, Canes Cats Heat 305 brings up a comment here. He says, there's no big-time players in the portal, really, or am I wrong, Pete and D Money? I think there's good players in the portal. I think these guys that we're talking about here are really good players. I don't know if there's anyone in the portal right now that if Miami doesn't land them, you say, wow, huge whiff. They aren't going to be able to recover, right? I'm talking about guys who are actually in the portal right now, not guys who could potentially enter. So in that respect, that's where I would kind of agree with you, Canes Cats Heat 305, but I still think there's players out there that could help this team next year.
Yeah. Pena being one of them. But again, this is all about price tag. They're great.
Gio says Pena played 25% of his snaps lined up outside.
Great nugget there from Gio. Good question from 305 here.
Sorry.
Let's break down what we think Pena can bring to the team, and is he different than what we already have? So pulling up Pena's stats here. So for those who don't know, Trevor Pena, wide receiver for Syracuse last year, lit up Miami, 6 catches, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, including a 50-yarder. Listed at 6 foot 180, probably closer to 5'10". Taller than Restrepo, but not by much. But he's more of a track guy than Restrepo. He ran like an 11 flat in high school, which is probably like a 4.5, maybe high 4.5, depending on how much faster he's gotten. He was a very good long jumper as well, which translates to explosiveness. So probably a little more explosiveness than your classic slot receiver, but he lined up 75% in the slot. Last year, with an offense that spread the ball around pretty good, 941 yards, 9 touchdowns. He is the leading returning receiver in the ACC, or at least he was until he jumped in the portal. We'll see if he comes back to the ACC. But Pena is a guy that carries the ball. He had 12 rushes last year. They try to get him the ball in that way. He can return as well. But I just think he's someone that knows how to get open, knows how to catch. And if you're Carson Beck, you want Bowers, you want McConkey. I'm not saying that Pena and Lofton would be that, but they'd be at least in the family of that style and going against ACC defenses. Question is, and this is why when we first jumped in the portal, I said, listen, let's let this process play out, is, there's a lot of teams trying to get these players. There's certain things that players want from the teams, and you got to find a place that matches. That's free agency, right? So this is just free agency. With Pena, I bet he looks at Restrepo as one of the top receivers in the country last year and says, I want that. I could do that. Sees Carson Beck, says, I know he needs receivers. And Miami makes a lot of sense. He's from the Bronx, I believe, or just from the New York metro area. So, they got him listed at Ocean Township, New Jersey, and then born in the Bronx. So, he's from that Northeast area. He's from an urban environment. So I could see that being a fit just culturally. Obviously, last name Pena. I don't know where he's from, but I'm sure whatever he is, we got it down here. I grew up with about 20 Penas. So, I think there's a lot of fit to it, but it all comes down to the same factors that NFL free agency comes down to. I think that's the way people need to look at it, more so than like fantasy football or recruiting, right?
Yeah.
Recruit pre-NIL recruiting, which is just sign as many 5-stars as you can. There's a cap that could be coming on, a real cap. And there's the cap of just money's not infinite, even for a top spender like Miami. So let's see how the whole thing plays out. But I think Miami is playing the process with Pena, and they like him. They think he's a good player. He has interest in Miami, obviously. He has the visit scheduled. So we'll see where that happens.
And look, not to try to dissect what happened at the end there with Syracuse too much, but like you mentioned, I don't know that he was all too confident in the quarterback situation, because Fran Brown kind of came out and said, look, we're not going to pay him $2 million. Now, from his side, they've kind of pushed back on that and said, well, we weren't asking for $2 million. And then you've seen Syracuse has gone out and tried to get a new quarterback, right? We just mentioned Angeli visiting, and there's some interest elsewhere too. So I don't think that I don't think he's being proven wrong in kind of that part of it. It was probably a little bit of both, but yeah, I definitely think this is a guy who he could help Miami without a doubt, but it's got to make sense.
Yep, got to make sense for everybody. That's what free agency is all about. Hassan contributing to Canes Connection. Appreciate you. That's why I wore my Toledo Mud Hen shirt, Hassan. It was for you. Anyone who else wants to help Canes Connection be part of the solution, like Hassan, canesconnection.com/CIS. Get access to private Zooms, private events like, my event that we had. Peter, you were there with Fletcher. We had Francis Mauanoa, Popo. We had Hayden Lowe there last year. At Cam Ward, Ruben Bain, Elijah Alston. These are great events. People get to take pictures. My son got a signed Cam Ward autograph jersey. So, there's a lot of fun stuff happening at these events. When you're a Canes Connection member, you're on the inside. You get private Zooms with me to kind of talk about things that we can't talk about on the show that are really for boosters, insiders only. So if you want to be on the inside, and you want to actually help the program instead of just talking about it with money you're probably going to spend on the Canes anyways. CanesConnection.com/CIS.
So we've had a couple questions here. Loose Screw says missing out on the Houston safety would be a big whiff. And then El Rico says, just hopped on. Any word on the safety from Houston? Any potential interest? So this is AJ Halsey, a guy, of course, that Zach Etheridge has coached and had a really good season for Houston last year. Any word there? Because it seems like people are already penciling him into Miami, and I don't know that should be the case just yet, because there's going to be options out there.
Yeah, so what I said when he jumped in the portal, obviously everybody made the connection with Etheridge, who coached him last year. I said this is not like a one-player process where like we pampered and teased him into the portal to come to Miami. That is not the case with Halsey. He is one of the names that we're looking at and we have interest in. You look at the size, 6 foot 215, first team all Big 12. I see a lot to like experience-wise. Had 5 interceptions last year, 43 tackles from the Houston area. Was not really very well known out of high school, 81 ranking, 150th ranked safety. So he's like very much a self-made man, and he's going to go through the process. But Miami will continue to monitor the safety market with the goal, not a depth safety, although you could also get a depth safety. They want a starting, impactful safety next to Zechariah Poyser. If they get it done, we'll know. If they don't, we'll know too. So the way to measure this all is, are you going to get a starting receiver, a starting safety, and then depth at D tackle, potentially running back, Charmar Brown on campus right now, the running back from North Dakota State, and then maybe more depth at receiver and safety. That's really what you're looking at. If a good linebacker comes in who we have interest in, that would be something you get as well.
Christian Hill says really want this North Dakota State running back. And there was there were people in the comments from yesterday's show, D, who weren't too happy about that potential pickup, but I'm all for continuing to add competition to that room.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, listen, we know what Fletcher can do. We know what Lyle can do, but this is football. And last year with the injuries, we got very lucky. Plus, we had incredible depth with Allen, Johnson. That's usually not how it works. So I've seen it go the other way where you run out of running backs. Remember, we picked up a guy off the street a couple of years ago that we had to really kind of work to get him in from UAB. So that running back depth can go very fast. A guy like this.
I think his name was Luscious Stanley.
That's him, yeah. So a guy like this who's played, produced at a big program.
Probably Lucius.
Yeah, probably Lucius. Luscious. Freshman running back. So he's got time. He won the freshman of the year in FCS. Cam Ward won that. Shador won that. Trey Lance won it. So this is a real player with some upside. And we'll see what happens. He's visiting right now. Ethio Kane. We appreciate the grind while sick. Two of the most skillful and cultured midfielders I've enjoyed watching are from the Canary Islands. David Silva and
David Silva and Pedri. And let me tell you, I appreciate this comment, Ethio Kane, because a lot of Barcelona fans claim Pedri is from their academy. But as you pointed out here, he's from Las Palmas Academy in the Canary Islands. So, La Masia, it's a big fraud, that youth academy. They claim guys once they pick them up right before they turn pro. Anyways.
There we go. I gotta get back there one day to the homeland, see what's going on out there. See if they have any football players. I don't know. Maybe Pena. Maybe we'll get another Pena, another Restrepo out there.
Let's see what else here. Adri says, Canes fans, hit that like button. Appreciate that. Guys, of course, subscribe as well if you aren't already.
Baseball talk today. We could always talk baseball. Just talk to Dorian Gonzalez's parents. We're gonna be doing a Storm Sessions for University of Miami's official channel with him. He's awesome. Belen guy. Looking forward to that. Bobby Marsh, that's also on deck. We did Jake Ogden last week, right before he had a pretty good weekend there for the Canes against Georgia Tech. Hit a home run, really played well. So if you guys are Canes baseball fans, check out Storm Sessions, my official show with University of Miami. Do interviews with all the top players, football, basketball, women's basketball, men's, and also baseball. So right now it's baseball. So we've interviewed pretty much most of the impactful starting players on the team. Still got a couple to go, but definitely check those out if you are a baseball fan. And got FIU, must-win game. Got to keep winning these midweeks for the rest of the year. And then up to Fenway Park against a Boston College team that's very beatable. And if you win that series, potentially sweep that series, you are really where you need to be in the ACC.
Joe Williams, appreciate you, man. Thank you for the support as always.
I appreciate everything you're doing on your own, man. You guys got a great channel.
Loose Screw says Pena injury history is worrisome.
Yeah, it is. But again, that's why
it's got to make sense.
It's got to make sense. It's like for free agency. Players with injuries and injury histories signed in free agency, but it affects the process. So just
and let's be real here, D. In the NFL, these contracts have injury clauses in them, a lot of them. So you cannot do that. People can say that you can manipulate it. You cannot do that with NIL. I am not aware. I don't think that these are not legal contracts if you're putting some sort of stipulation in there for how many games you play, right? So you sign a guy, he gets hurt, he's getting every last penny from what he was agreed to, right? So that's the other part of it. That at least sometimes in the NFL, you can get, if a guy gets hurt, well, you can get out of that deal because the guarantees were only so much. It's not that the same here.
Yeah, but so here's some questions from Kane's Cat. If we take 3 receivers, what does it mean about wide receivers? What does it mean for JoJo? JoJo is going to be a critical part of this team. I don't see JoJo being affected at all by any of this. He's going to be a big time player. Just hasn't played yet. Injured for the spring game. You got a senior quarterback, so you want to give him proven options. JoJo is going to have a huge role on this team if healthy and continuing to progress the way he does. I think he's going to be truly impactful, like first or second round kind of guy. So my hopes for him remain high, and I think he'll start this year. As far as the depth, I think that as far as the depth guys, like if they go 2, 3, and I think more likely is 2, that'll say more about like a Nikar who left, Shabar Kirk left, Chance Robinson's been injured, right? You wanted him to be that guy, but he hasn't been able to play.
And you were lucky last year. You were completely healthy at that position. I think we're taking for granted our health at a couple spots at running back last year as well, because if one of those guys goes down, then you felt good about Lyle later part of the season, but you didn't know what you had just yet. And could a similar situation play out with a Pringle becoming the number 3 as the season goes on, D, even if you bring in someone else? Without a doubt. But that's how you layer these classes on top of each other and build legitimate depth. Yeah,
this is a sport where you don't know what's going to happen. You use a lot of receivers in this offense, right? We had 4 starters last year, right? I think that's fair to say, plus a tight end that was like a receiver. So, let's say Elijah Lawton takes all of Arroyo's production, which that's a task, but let's say he does it. You still have 4 kind of starting receiver spots and no one coming back. So a lot of work to do.
Stephen Aveo asks, thank you for your support. As always, asking about Harrison Taggart, the BYU linebacker, who I asked you before the show if you had any news on him, because I was a big fan of his.
Yeah, I got to ask. Let me dig into this one. I don't know the answer. Just being candid. I will dig on this one. I think it makes sense. This guy that ran 10.6 in high school, signed with Mario out of Oregon, then transferred to BYU and was a starter there. So to me, my personal opinion, I haven't broken down the tape in detail, just seeing him move around a little bit and seeing the verified numbers. I mean, this guy can run, and we want a guy that can run. So makes sense to me, but I haven't heard it yet. I'll dig into this one.
Brother Jay with the Sean Taylor jersey in the picture, asking about safety. Is there a standout safety in the portal that UM can pick up that will meet UM standards? So we talked about it before. AJ Halsey, a potential option from Houston, but believe they're going to keep digging and trying to find someone as well, because they need to bring someone in there who's I think close to being starter caliber.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Taylor standards, if that's UM standards, I don't know. But they'll get somebody, I think. They're confident. When I spoke to them yesterday, they didn't seem too
Brandon asked me about Greg Smith, who's officially in the portal from Florida.
I don't know. I don't know about that one. It wouldn't be the main bullet.
Portal D tackles, Bry is asking.
Well, Braxton Feely from Boise State. Pull up his stuff, Pete, so we can see, because we talked about him a little earlier, but I want to just expand on this guy. So this guy's on campus right now. Miami's in a pretty good spot here. I think if we get this guy, I haven't watched him in detail, but I remember watching Boise State against Penn State in the playoff game, and my thought was they're holding up a lot better than I thought up front. They were undersized, obviously, but it's not like Penn State pushed them around. So you talk about 6'1", 297 from Utah, 5.5 sacks last year, 2 tackles against Penn State in the bowl. I think he's a pretty good player from what I've seen in the clips and just the production. And I think he fits the profile as a first-team all-conference guy, smaller conference. He can do some things.
Yeah, here's a clip of him getting in the backfield here.
Yeah, look at our copyright busted, Pete.
No, this is not a TV clip here.
There you go. All right, let's see. So here you go. Yeah, kind of unblocked there, but this is kind of the profile you want. Experienced, has produced, fourth defensive tackle.
Yeah, and again, let's I think what you just said right there, D, is the key. I was talking to some people this weekend. They feel really good about those top three guys right now, right? And still has to show it on the field. You don't. I'm not crowning these guys all conference defensive tackles, even though you did have one last year in Simeon Barrow. But I think the combination of the size and the athleticism that a Blay, a Justin Scott, who was added that weight, and an Ahmad Moten, who was coming on really strong at the end of last year, I thought, they feel good about those three guys. So you're bringing in probably DT4, maybe a package player as well on pass rushing situations that you can use there. But to me, it's a good sign that they're thinking that way.
100%. I mean, you talk about Blay was the number 2 safety defensive tackle in the portal when he signs. I think he's still top 4 or 5. I don't know where they finally ranked him, but he was a highly coveted tackle, top of the market kind of guy for the transfer portal. Justin Scott was a top 10 player in the country. Those are the guys that go first round, the high school 5-star at that position. And then Moden's been very good. I would say very good. Moden's shown flashes of being very good, and there's a lot of confidence around him. So you need a fourth guy. This guy fits the bill. You add Feely to this group and have some young guys pushing up, your Dante Simpsons, Ortavius Jones. I think it's a pretty good room. Well, I think it would be probably the second best room in the ACC behind Clemson. And who knows what Justin Scott does? Justin Scott makes a big jump.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he's the game changer. He's already in a position to start, it looks like. And I'm telling you, man, he looks way bigger. Obviously, you've seen it, D, but he wasn't where he needed to be from a size perspective last year. And people kept asking us about him. What would we say? Let's be patient. He's a freshman in a very tough spot to get meaningful snaps.
Didn't have spring.
And I said it. I think it was kind of like a thing where there were people in the building who said, look, once he gets that basketball mindset out of his head, he's going to be unbelievable. But he just wasn't there yet. And I think we've seen him take those steps to I think be one of the better tackles in the country this year. I'm in the conference for sure, but I think we know he has the ability to do it. And I think that the physicals have caught up. So.
Yeah, and Heatherman said in one of his interviews, he said, we expect Scott at this point to win his one-on-one battles. When we design our defense and Scott's one-on-one with a guard or a center, we think Scott wins that battle. And that's how we plan our D. So they expect him to be an impact player. And when you look at the NFL drafts on Thursday, the first round, you will see these defensive linemen that are 260 plus go up, the 200. When I say defensive lineman as opposed to an edge, I'm talking about over 260 pounds, right? Could be a big defensive end, could be a defensive tackle. Those guys, the ones that go in the first round of the draft, are blue chip players. I mean, up and down the board. You look at NFL, guys that do it, the Dexter Lawrences, the Jeffrey Simmons, the Chris Jones, 5 stars. Talk about this year, Shamar Stewart as a big defensive end. That's a 5-star player. You talk about Mason Graham was a blue chip player. Michael Williams as a big defensive end. These are all big guys, man. That's just kind of how you win. You don't win at that position without blue chip high school players. And I think Justin Scott is right there.
Some comments here about the USF D lineman Bernard Gooden. I mean, he's even smaller than Felly. That'd be my only comment.
And look, I think top of the market at defensive tackle is going to be kind of expensive. That's going to be more for a team like Ohio State that needs like a starter and has the money to spend.
I mean, listen, Gooden's 6'1", 280. So I don't know that. I mean, your Felly, I guess it's going to be those two are in a similar profile. Felly's bigger than him, though. Felly's got 15, 20 pounds on him.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot cheaper, I think, when it's all said and done. So keep in mind the price of the market. Do you need a starter or do you not need a starter? And that's something to keep in mind. Pete, before we talk basketball, let's talk about the #1 Cuban restaurant on planet Earth, 40 plus years in the business. I need to go there and get some chickens. I don't eat chicken soup. Maybe I'll get some, I don't know. What kind of soup should I get there?
Sopa de malanga?
Yeah.
Do they have that over there or what?
I'm sure they do. Over there at Islas Canarias, #1 Cuban restaurant in Miami, 40 years and counting. They're in Dayland Mall in the dining pavilion. At least 40 years of counting in the city, now in the Dayland Mall dining pavilion. Go there for breakfast, lunch, dinner, on the go. Everybody passes through Dayland at some point. This is the place to stop. Just a whole different level than everything else there. And you get some of the finest croquetas on the planet. Gets voted top croquetas every year. You got more innovative items and different kinds of things. Sandwiches, breakfast, empanadas to grab and go, even tequeños, which are Venezuelan, but they'll do a great tequeño there at Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant on the planet. Go there today, Dayland Mall.
All right, D. So let's get into a little basketball.
Let's go.
Nothing crazy. Obviously, we did our instant reaction to the Shelton Henderson pickup yesterday, which if you guys have not checked that out, then you gotta go check that out. We had some, especially me. I was pretty energetic there. D was battling through with his voice. I've been under the weather too, but I jumped out of it there because I was excited. Yeah, it was really the Duke stuff, man. The Duke fans have not been happy. Been seeing a lot of stuff on social media in our mentions, and just checking their boards out. They obviously aren't happy that Jay Lucas made that flip, but I don't see how it could be a surprise to them just knowing that he was the reason he was going to Duke in the first place. This is a guy who plays for, we didn't mention this in the show yesterday, he plays for Jay Lucas's brother's AAU team, John Lucas III's AAU team. So same high school. He plays for his brother's AAU program. Coach Shire, I'm sorry. That kid was never going to Duke unless Jay Lucas was there. Like I'm not saying he was wouldn't have considered Duke, but like he was going to Duke for Jay Lucas. He wasn't going for that. He wasn't going for any other reason. So I kind of got me fired up there. But
and he was a Duke kind of kid, I would say. Just a personality, the way he competes on both ends. He fit Duke. And I say that as a compliment. I mean, look, I know we hate Duke, whatever. I respect the kind of competitors they get, the kind of like high IQ players they get. To me, if someone is offered, it's like kind of like Clemson. If someone's offered by Duke and they want the player, or Notre Dame, you know that a lot of the intangible stuff is probably good. So you can just kind of watch the player as they are. And I think that is, to me, a good thing with Henderson, is that he's a Duke kind of guy. But like you said, Pete, the Houston ties, the Lucas ties, that is the reason he went there. And that's the reason he went to Miami. And I think if you're trying to build a program to have one of your best players like that, your most talented player, your highest rated recruit, who's built like that and has that attitude, and he knows you and you can coach him however you want because you've been coaching him since he was a kid. Perfect way to build a program as opposed to just kind of like getting these transfers you don't know.
Yeah. So getting into a couple updates here. You look at what Miami has right now, and let me pull up my conversation with Trenton Breeze earlier. He has a handy dandy graphic for me here, so I don't forget anyone. So you have right now 7 guys on Miami's roster. You got True Washington, Trey Donaldson, Malik Reneau, Ernest Ude, Dante Allen, Timothé Malovich, and Shelton Henderson. You got 7 guys. They're working on a couple more, from what I understand, that could be coming here in the next few days, pop in the next few days. A guy that we've talked about a lot here, the Bosnian Bulldog, Harun Zedno. Unfortunately, from what I understand, I don't expect him in this class. Was at Miami recently for a visit. He's at Villanova now. I'm not sure if Villanova's the spot, but with Miami, a guy obviously they were fans of. I just think it's a numbers game, man. You have a lot. You have 7 guys committed now. From what I understand, like I said, a couple more guys here waiting in the wings and similar positions. I will say, I think this team still needs to continue to add that shooting. Waiting to get an update here on Chris Bell, the Syracuse wing who visited. I think he would slot in perfectly in that lineup for Miami. I think he could be a really nice floor spacer for this team. So we'll see with him. Marcus Allen, another one. He's not much of a shooter, but been a long rumor that he's going to follow Coach CY from Missouri. So we'll see what happens on that end. And then look, I said something yesterday that on the Shelton Henderson show that pertaining to Cooper Flagg's decision and, you know, whether or not that would have, I said, look, I think it kind of takes Miami completely out of it for the boozers. And I don't know that that's the case. I'm just going to say that. So
Pete always he always drops a little bomb there at the end when he does the basketball talk. So yeah, chew on that one. I think in general, you know, we talked about it off air, Pete. If you can't bolster your high school ranks and you have a whole new team, maybe targeting some freshmen that didn't play that much, that you think have talent, that you bringing them in to develop might be a move, right? Just to kind of make sure you have developmental guys in your program and you're not just only trying to recruit, you know, guys to be 7th, 8th, 9th men, which is hard to do when you're talking about experienced portal guys.
Yeah, that's I think that's where they're at right now because, like I said, 7 guys, and the guys who you've brought in already kind of have. Nothing's defined as a role right now, of course, because you haven't even started these organized practices or workouts, whatever you want to call them. Most of these guys are still at their other schools. So, but you're recruiting them and bringing them in with a vision of this is what it's going to look like. I would expect a couple more high school guys here because you got to bring in some guys who are still developmental and you know, in a year could be impact players, but it's got to be guys who are willing to say, I may not be the lead, you know, may not be in the lead role or may not be getting prime minutes this year. So that's, I think that's where we're at right now with this roster building process. And I will continue to bring you guys the latest as I hear it.
And look, if you want to get your Miami Hurricanes basketball gear, your headgear, 30% off all headgear, that sale's still going on in any product. First item, 20% off, promo code INSIGHT20. That is at the Miami Hurricane team store. You can drop the promo code on the website, miamihts.com, or you could do it at the store next to the Thesis Hotel right across campus. Just say Canes Insight. You get 20% off your first item, promo code INSIGHT20. If you're online, we got to get our basketball stuff. Baseball season's popping. Fenway Park coming up. A lot to be excited about. Pete, we're rolling. I think we're back. We made it through. No problems with the voice, although I'm at the end of the rope. So we'll be back tomorrow with Mike. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Hit that like and subscribe.